Good morning. Welcome to all of our followers. I'm going to start because I think we are now live on YouTube and we have some people joining us on Zoom as well. For everyone who's with us, thank you for joining us. Accompanying me is Gil Brito, the founding partner of the firm. How are you, Gil?
I'm doing great, Stephanie. How's everything today?
Doing well. So today we're going to be doing a webinar about the EB1 Residency Petition. We're going to go ahead and for those that are on Zoom, you can ask your questions live on Zoom on the right-hand side of your screen. For those that are on YouTube, if you're asked your question live on YouTube, we will get it, we will see it. So we're going to go ahead and begin. Initially, just take a look and remember that this is not an attorney-client relationship. We're really here to provide information for you guys and help you on your journey. And if you want to get more information, you can always contact us, info@beltranbrito.com, and we can get more into the nitty-gritty about your specific case, right? So Gil, let's start initially with how is this in the scope of the world today, in the world we're living in now, how is the EB1 affected?
Yeah, so really important, Stephanie. So we have the presidential proclamation indicating that green cards worldwide, certain green card categories obviously are going to be affected. When we're talking about they're going to be affected, we're talking about for people that are outside of the US, number one. Number two, issuing green cards, immigrant visas at US consulates. That doesn't mean we can't file petitions. That doesn't mean we can't have petitions approved. That doesn't mean, Stephanie, we can't get in the line. You know, let's get in the line for the wait. So when the wait is over, let's just say when COVID has subsided a bit, when consulates reopen, when visas are being issued again, you're already ready, okay, to proceed. And I think that's the reality of it. So there's this idea out there that no, right now, green cards are closed, visas are closed. There's nothing. United States is not issuing green cards. United States is not issuing visas. That is false. That is not true. Yes, they are. The issue is some categories, EB1 category is one of them, that they are not issuing the immigrant visa at the consulates. This is the reality. Consulates are closed right now. There was a report this week that slowly they're starting to reopen. Don't be surprised if in the next few months they're going to start once again issuing green cards via U.S. consulates, issuing visas through U.S. consulates. That should be developing slowly and very soon. But the reality is that, and we're going to talk about this process. This process is a lengthier process to obtain a green card. Let's take advantage now of the opportunity that there's less filings with USCIS. That's true, right, Stephanie? Like there's less filings. We're seeing quicker decisions even without premium processing cases. And I feel it's an opportunity right now versus actually being an impediment to obtaining a green card. I would say take advantage of it now because I would say things are moving faster than they probably have in the past, generally speaking.
Right, Gil, it's almost a lot of misinformation because it's people who think, oh no, immigration is not accepting green card petitions at this time. They are. You can submit your green card petition. So they're actually less because people are scared and they think, oh, they're not accepting them. I'm not going to submit it. In fact, submit it now so that you already secure your place in line. Exactly like Gil said. That's
the way to go. Stephanie, let's talk a little bit about, so this webinar today really has to do with extraordinary ability petitions. It's also called the EB1 category. Stephanie, talk to us. What type of professions, what type of categories does the EB1 cover?
The EB1 is great because it's a huge umbrella, okay? It's covering everything in the sciences, the arts, athletics, business, and education. So no matter what you do, we can try and find a way to see if it fits and if it encapsulates what the EB1 is about. In reality, what the EB1 is a petition for residency for those who are truly near the top of their field. They're truly at the top of their field. They're one of the best. And we're not talking top 1%, okay? This is like, top 5, 10%. You're really doing well in your field. There are so many fields that can be encapsulated. The important part is, and we're going to talk about this later, showing how your field and what you do fits into the categories of immigration to show that you and your field are in fact extraordinary, right?
Yeah, and let's talk about this word extraordinary a little bit more, So I get so funny. A couple of days ago, I was in a consultation and the client, the potential client, she said, Gil, I'm clearly not extraordinary. It's like I don't feel like I'm extraordinary. I'm like, you know what? I think it's also people generally a little bit humble about themselves. Professionals are like that. A lot of stars are like that. A lot of people that are artists are like that as well. I would say we got to get out of the mentality. We got to say, you know what? Yeah, I'm pretty good at what I do. I meet the criteria, which we're going to go to in detail now, and we're going to go through all the criteria and all the tips that we have for individuals applying for EB1. But you know, this idea that if I'm not in the top 1% of my field, the top 1%, I would say, is very, very, very exclusive. I don't believe USCIS, who's issuing 10,000 EB1 green cards in any given year, that's only 1%, Stephanie. That's only the Nobel Prize winner. That's only the, you know, the Oscar winner. That's only the Goya winner. That's only the Golden Bear winner. No, that's not, I can't imagine that it's exclusively. If you are, I truly believe if you are one of these individuals, okay, that's automatic. You know, like, yes, that is. Do you have one-time achievement in your field of endeavor? What's considered the very, very top award in your field, and it's given to you directly in your name? Yeah, that's boom. Instant, right? Definitely. That's like, forget everything else. Forget the press, forget the letters of recommendation, forget anything else that I might have to demonstrate that. Once I have that threshold, I automatically qualify. This seminar, I would tell you, is for those individuals who is not in that percentage. Okay. So yeah, I don't have that. And I don't think I'm absolutely the most top expert in my scientific field. For example, I'm not the very, very best author there is. Okay. No, what we're indicating is that this category, by the way, something really important, Stephanie, we haven't mentioned yet, and what I consider the best part of this category, it's a self-petition. Okay.
Right.
You are petitioning yourself. Okay. So without having a work offer, without having a company sponsoring you, Stephanie's talk about that a little bit more.
So let's get into essentially what this is. This is a permanent residency petition divided into 2 stages. And the most important part is that you are a self-petitioner. You are telling immigration, I am so extraordinary in your field that I can go ahead and benefit the US. I can bring some sort of benefit. I can benefit the US economy. I can bring my skills to the US. In contrast to a US company potentially petitioning for you, or maybe making a substantial investment. So the great thing is you are going on your own laurels. You are going, this is me and this is what I could bring to the US. And then the other part about this is, because it is permanent residency, the great part about this is there are benefits for your family as well. So for those individuals, their spouse and their children under 21 unmarried, they're going to go ahead and get the benefit of permanent residency as well, right? So we'll go ahead and discuss exactly how we get there. But the beautiful part is this is a green card. This is going for a green card on your own laurels, a self-petitioning petition, essentially.
Let's get into it, Stephanie. So let's talk about the EB1 petition, the I-140 petition. This is stage 1 of a green card process for extraordinary ability. When we're taking a look at a case, let's go through the criteria a little bit there, Stephanie. Let's discuss what are you looking at immediately when we're having a consultation with a client? What are those questions that we ask?
So what we love first is, before we're having our consultation, we're going to get a copy maybe of your CV, your resume, and we're going to see just an overview of what you do. And then we're going to go ahead and ask you specific questions to see if we can meet certain categories. There are 10 categories in total. And what you need to do is you need to show that you at least meet 3 of those 10 categories. So we'll go ahead and go through them. We can go back and forth, Gil, if you'd like.
Sure.
So the first one is essentially probably one that really applies to the most amount of careers and the most amount of field, which is leading critical role in distinguished companies, distinguished organizations. What does that mean? You have to be able to show that you had an important role, a decisive role in some sort of company, some sort of production, some sort of place of work. So we're talking, let's say you're looking at an organizational chart of a company. You are towards the top, right? You are towards the top. You're someone who's important and critical to the functions of the company, or the functions of the production, or the functions of the restaurant, the event, whatever it may be. It's showing it's an important role. And then the second part of that is showing that it's really an important company or an important production, right? It can't just be a private wedding event, for instance. Let's imagine you're a photographer and you were the lead photographer, but it was just a private wedding in a backyard. That's not relevant for immigration. You have to show, listen, I'm photographing, for instance, an awards show or something that also has its own reputation on its own. That's the first one, and that's really the one that applies the most. It's harder than most people think, but there are ways to document it.
Stephanie, let's go into that a little. Let's use great example, photographer. So photographer is performing a lead role for, like you said, for the event. But I think the better argument there, Stephanie, would be probably you're performing a lead role for the photography studio, for the photography company. Okay, so it's like, yes, there's this unbelievable event that you're shooting, but are you really performing a lead and critical role for that particular event? That is not the easiest argument to make, but if we have to turn it on its side a little bit, it's like, who am I actually performing the lead and critical role for? So you're right. That category is one of the best gotcha categories, I would imagine, by USCIS, because you would think if you're performing a lead role for a production, let's just take an actor, for example, the starring actor for a film. You would usually believe that to be true, wouldn't you? But is that actor performing a lead and critical role for the production studio? Is that lead?
Potentially not, right? We're talking, let's say are you in a lead role in one of the Marvel movies, or are you in a lead role for the entire Marvel franchise? That's the difference. The difference is this one production may not be enough. You have to show you are for, because the word really is that organization, the organization as a whole. So the actors actually have a little trouble in this category and may need to rely on other categories a little more. We have to see how we spin, right?
Let's talk about some stuff. Got a great comment right now. It says, hey, talk to us a little bit about entrepreneurs and business. Beautiful. I love lead and critical role for entrepreneurs. I would say that professional category in the category of business is absolutely the best for lead or critical role for an organization. So let's as we go through some of these categories, we'll hit business as well, Stephanie. Yeah. Just to show, because a lot of people that are tuning in may be really interested in me as an entrepreneur, that I'm creating this product, this company. How can I obtain an EB1? Okay, so let's go to the next category.
Well, actually, just quickly go on that point. Entrepreneurs, what do you want for that point? First, you want a letter from basically the head of the company that says why your role was so important. Second, you want an organizational chart that shows why you're near the top. And third, you want evidence that the company is in fact distinguished, which is maybe press about the company or history about the company, things of that nature.
Recognition,
right?
that the company's received in the past, for example. That's something that you want to show and demonstrate as well. I think, Stephanie, maybe your internet is a little slow. Steph, you there? If not, I'll take over. All right, so we're going to go over to the next category. The next category is lesser nationally or internationally recognized prizes or awards. So I don't have I think you're back, Steph. You don't have absolutely the top award in your particular field, but this is a lesser, let's just call it nationally recognized non-regional award. Okay, I would say that's the most important emphasis of this category. So yes, it is not just a local award. It's not just an award in your township, for example. It's not an award in your county or necessarily in your state. This is nationally recognized in your country. So yes, it's a lesser known award, okay, or in your particular field, maybe it's known. So it's not a top of mind award where people are thinking Oscar, Grammys, Nobel Prize. We're not thinking of this. We're thinking of lesser recognition. I've used in that category in the past, Stephanie. We have utilized companies that are international companies that even give awards within their own organization. This is the reality. If you work for a company, and again, I'm spinning it in business a little bit, just for our viewers there. And if you're working for an organization that has 25,000 employees worldwide and makes billions of dollars, or 100,000 employees, and you're receiving all these accolades within your organization, that goes to lead, I would say, number one, that category, but also potentially we could use it in lesser nationally or internationally recognized award as well. Going again through the category. Stephanie, you back with us?
I'm back.
Okay, great. Talk to us about published material.
Okay, so the press category. The press category is a great category. What they're really looking for is that there's published material about you. So yes, there could be press about potentially the company that you're leading, but that's going to be more towards the company on why the company's distinguished. So that would be used in a different area if we're looking at this in the lens of business. Press, that category specifically, is they want press about you. There was a published article in Entrepreneurs magazine that says top 10 entrepreneurs of the year, and you come out in that magazine. There was a magazine article where they're saying they're interviewing some of the top entrepreneurs in this industry. You come out mentioned, you're interviewing. And it's not just a simple mention, right? They really want an entire press article about you. And the important part here, Gil, is they don't like blogs. So blogs don't have as much push and as much emphasis as maybe a website in your field or a newspaper or a magazine. But really, this one is press about you, showing that, you know, you are in fact recognized by press outlets as an expert, right?
So let's go a little bit more into press. So one thing I'm looking for there typically is circulation figures, right? So maybe it's not what we're thinking. Maybe it's not, you know, major newspaper or magazine level circulation, 500,000 a month, or $1 million a month or a week. You know, maybe we need to kind of spin it around a little bit and say, you know what, most press right now is online. Okay, how many unique visitors does that website receive? How many clicks? How many times has a YouTube interview been viewed? Okay, I'm looking for statistics. I want the data. I want the numbers. I want to quantify that category, number one, because more views indicates better publication of it generally. So when we're talking about published material, we're not just talking about a news article in a famous periodical. We're talking about even within your profession. It could be a professional journal, for example, that only has 10,000 readers a month, but it is qualified as a professional trade journal because the bulk of your profession utilizes it, subscribes to it, for example, and it's important, okay, within your particular industry. So that's an important focus. So it's like a lot of times people tell me, Stephanie, you know, I don't have the New York Times article, or I don't have the Hollywood Reporter, or I don't have this, or I don't have, I'm like, yeah, I don't either. You know, it's like, that's understandable. Okay.
We're still working on that.
Yeah, it's like join the club. Okay. Yeah, we don't have that. Okay. So that's, does that mean that you're not going to qualify for the press? Of course not. But something important, and let's talk about this. And I'm going to close the press category with this mention, and that is the press, the interview, whatever it is. I don't want them just interviewing you as an expert in your field or quoting you. I want them talking about your career, okay, about your accolades, about your accomplishments, about that unbelievable project you did that is being utilized for X, Y, and Z. You're an industrial designer, that unbelievable design that you went ahead and created that's now to market. You're a business entrepreneur, and the fact that you went ahead and took up $5 million in venture capital, and you were able to go ahead and scale that up, and you were able to come up with that important app that now has 500,000 downloads, for example. Okay, so it's not just about, hey, I have press about myself. There's my picture. There it is. No, we want to go ahead and have something that actually discusses your career. I think that's the way to go with press. Stephanie, talk to us. Go ahead. Yeah.
One point, we actually, you know, we got a question that I think is relevant right here in this point, which is how many? How many?
Oh, great question. Yeah.
I would say press. I would say, listen, when you're talking EB1 caliber, permanent residency, I like to see 3, 4, 5. I don't think one suffices. Yes, we're going to submit it, and we're obviously going to make that argument, right? But usually for the winning cases, when we know it's a good case, we're looking at north of 4, north of 5 articles about
I think
you.
that's good. That's a good amount. And again, let's talk about this. It depends the category, because there's certain individuals that in that industry, it's really not press. In that profession, you're just not going to have it. So maybe having 3 press articles in that given profession is considered like, wow, you know, it's actually quite a good thing. You know, it's not. So again, if you're an actor, okay, or you're a musician and you're in a rock band, for example, and you have 3 press articles, I might not think that that's very impressive. Okay. However, if you're a business professional and you have that actually could be quite nice for the case. Okay. Stephanie, talk to us a little bit about what I consider one of my absolute favorite categories to win. And I feel this is, let's just call it winner, winner, chicken dinner. And that is the judging category. Okay. And I love the judging category, Stephanie, because if you show that you did it one time that you've done it and judged other professionals in your category, okay? And you could demonstrate that it's actually within your category. It's not what, you're just famous for being famous and you're judging a modeling competition. That might be a tough sell. You're in one of the Mrs. Beauty pageants, and you're just a famous person and you're just there as one of the, the token judges. No, we're talking about within your field. Talk to us about judging categories, Ev.
The reason we love judging is just that, right? It's a one-time, it's pretty easy to document. Essentially, you have judged or you have evaluated people who are in your field or a very similar field. And this is so wide and it's so broad to be able to say, really, you need show that you've been invited to be a judge because of your expertise, usually with a letter. Show that you actually did it. So either photographs or maybe a copy of the rubric you used, or maybe a thank you letter, or even screenshots if it was televised. Lots of ways to show this. Plus the thank you letter from the organization asking you to judge. So what are examples? When we're talking about the business arena, potentially you're invited to judge thesis works at some sort of university. That's sort of the top end. If you're judging thesis works at a university, that's beautiful for this category.
And you're typically not a professor, so it's generally not within the scope of your normal job, let's just say, right?
Exactly. This is not something you're doing day to day. You were invited really because of your expertise in your field. So that's a good one. For business, there is like what we were saying earlier, maybe there's a voting and there's a competition as to let's help determine the top 10 business and entrepreneurs for the year. You participated on this panel where you were helping to choose one of the top 10. That works as well. This can work for other areas as well. Let's say, what's my favorite example? Chef. I love the chef. So maybe there's some sort of cooking competition. You were invited to participate on the panel.
Yeah.
There are a lot of different ways to do it. Think of some sort of contest, think of some sort of in the academic realm. Maybe you were invited by an academic institution.
Maybe a panel, maybe there's a panel in your industry. Let's think just really quick business. I mean, incubators. So there's these business incubators all the time where you have all these like tech companies coming together and you have kind of like these individuals that are at a higher level within the profession and they're giving feedback and they're discussing, or they have competitions within the incubator on where funding is going to go, financial funding is going to go ahead and develop a particular company. I think that's a good example as well. I love that. One thing we're going to discuss here, I think it's a good point, is I feel there's categories for EB1 that I would consider A categories, and then there's B categories. I'll consider A categories are the ones that I believe are more interesting within a case. That's based on my experience, my individual criteria when I'm evaluating a case. Judging is one of those that I love because a lot of times, even if you don't have it and you're aware of it, you could quickly obtain it potentially within the future as well.
How many times have our clients said, I've been invited to do the panel, but I never did it?
I never did it. And I'm like, I think it's time to go ahead and just like do it. You know what I'm saying? For example. So we're going to talk about a category now that I consider, some others might consider the A category. I consider more of a B category, and that's membership. Okay. So you would think, hey, I'm a member in my profession in this association, that association. It could be a doctor, for example, could be a business leader, could be, you would think an artist, I'm a member of the Grammys, or I'm a member of, voting member of the Emmys, or whatever that might be. That I'll use more for the judging category. But in the membership criteria, let's talk about that, Stephanie. Membership has little pitfalls, doesn't it?
It is much more difficult than people think. Basically, it's the caveat there is you have to be a member in an association where they granted you membership because of your exceptional abilities, because of your contributions to your field, because you're in fact exceptional in what you do. So what does that mean for us? It can't just be that it's you sign this application, you submit a payment, and that's why you are a member. That's not sufficient. That's not what immigration is looking for. They're looking for maybe, you submitted your application, you show that you have 10 years of experience, you show that you've received potentially some sort of accolade, and that's why they granted you membership. Now, the way this sometimes could work is if there is an organization or association where there are multiple levels of membership, maybe the first level of membership is anyone who could just pay and join. But the professional level of membership is only open to those who show some sort of, some sort of
Exceptional
abilities in their actual field. So that can work for us as well.
I like to see there, Stephanie, to hate to interrupt you, but I like to see there somewhere where there is a threshold and a barrier to entry. Okay, so I think that's the terminology, right? So it's like maybe there you need to apply, and a committee needs to actually review to see if you qualify or if you do not qualify to enter and to become a member. Again, us as attorneys paying $150 a year to become members of a medical association, we immediately know that that is not sufficient for that category. And that category is plural. Memberships, we need minimum 2. Okay, so that's an important point. And Steph, maybe we're talking too much, so I'm going to speed it up a little bit. We're going to jump into a category called original, scientific, scholarly, artistic, athletic, business-related contribution to the field. That's a mega category and another winner category, I think. But again, not one of the categories. You would say, well, I created something original in the field. That's it. I must qualify for this individual category. Not necessarily, Stephanie, right? So just because you've created something important, is that it?
So essentially, it's not only that you created something important, but that it's significant in your field. The word is really major significance in your field. So you created something and it is being used by people in your field. It is being recognized. People are talking about it. There's a lot of buzz. There's a lot of press about this new technique or this new movement. One of the easiest examples here is a patent. Maybe you hold a patent and that patent has been recognized and is being utilized by other individuals in your field. So it is not only that you created something, but it's really being used. It's had some impact in your field. People have found it to be something that's almost changing in your industry. You made a significant change in your industry, right? And this goes across all of them. This is the arts, business, education. For business, it's essentially maybe you made some sort of technique in the world of how to acquire clients, or in the world of SEO, something that wasn't being done before in the world of SEO. Tech.
Maybe the model you implemented is now being utilized by others, and there's other companies out there willing to give you a letter indicating that, yes, we are now utilizing this model. Boom, you have original contribution in your field.
In this one, we actually had an example, which was an app. You've created an app that's really being used very frequently by people in your industry. It has huge reviews, excellent reviews. That was a great example that we had here. The patent example that we had here. Other ways that it applies to business, can you think of any?
I mean, I would say anywhere, in business, I would say those are probably the main ones, but it could be also you created a product, maybe right. From a business, don't think necessarily always technology. Maybe it's a brick and mortar establishment that you created something. So even something that you own the intellectual property of in the way of the actual product itself, or in the process of a product, that's going to maybe even go more into manufacturing processes, everything. So that, listen, it could be a project manager, a civil engineer that has a particular method and did a little bit of research and's published a paper about it. And that paper, Stephanie, is being utilized by other research and papers in the future. This happens a lot in the sciences, and that's how we go about proving this category. Okay, that leads me directly into another one called authorship of scholarly articles in professional publications or major trade publications, Stephanie. So here, generally you would think authorship of articles is going to be more geared towards sciences, academic, stuff like that, but not necessarily, right?
So the important part here is authorship of scholarly articles and published in professional publications. So the first part of that is what we saw initially and what we've been seeing with immigration is maybe you are an author and maybe you're writing books. That might not be sufficient for this petition or this case. Really, you have to be able to show that you're writing these articles and it's being read by what immigration says learned persons. So people who are in this field are using and reading your text in order to learn more about their field and expand on their field. This is really a category that says you are writing something that's being used as a point of reference for people in your field. That's that aspect of a scholarly article. People in your field are learning from it. And then the second part is professional, right? Something professional publication, which kind of goes to what we spoke about before, Gil, which is, the amount of readers. Is it a professional publication? Yes, maybe it only has 10,000 readers, but this is the top business magazine in the industry. So just showing that it's published in a reasonable place that's common for your industry.
That's a great category to win, I would say. That's a real good one. It's very technical, but those technical ones, if you kind of check off the little boxes, it's a nice category to be able to obtain. Let's go to the next one. Your work has been displayed at artistic exhibitions or showcases. This is really skewed towards arts. Mainly, if you really read USCIS policy memorandum on this category and their internal kind of their internal manual, they're looking here for painters and sculptors traditionally. So if you're an artist, you're a painter, you're a sculptor, an illustrator, for example, if you could argue that your work is being showcased, that's kind of a guaranteed category typically for this particular field. However, Stephanie, we try to utilize this category in as many potential fields as we can, and we've traditionally been given the category outside of just a painter or a sculptor, correct?
So sometimes we almost use it a bit of as a catch-all because yes, there is that element of artistic, but we have been able to argue it as in business, in athletics, in education, where it's I'm displaying the work that's common in the medium that's common for my field. So let's talk about the business example again. If you are giving workshops, courses, seminars, you're speaking at conferences, you are displaying your expertise for potentially people in your industry on a public level. You're publicly speaking, and this is an exhibition or a showcase because it's a conference for people in your industry. So we have been able to mold it a little bit to be able to say, listen, I'm displaying my expertise and my work in a medium that's common for my industry, right?
Yeah, Stephanie, one thing we'll discuss, and might as well discuss it right now. There, at the very end of the criteria, it says, if one of these criteria does not necessarily fit into your particular field, demonstrate the reason it does not fit into your field. This is a great one of those categories where you could say, hey, I'm not an artist, but there is a tremendous amount of display. There's a little bit of analysis that needs to be done initially to be able to argue that category. But this isn't the only criteria, these 10 categories. There is the opportunity to do something called other comparable evidence. And with other comparable evidence, there's a very good argument of display, seminars, webinars online, things of this nature. Correct, Stephanie?
Yep, absolutely. So you can go ahead and say, and the way we usually actually present it is this qualifies as display, but even if it doesn't, please acknowledge that this is really comparable to the way a painter exhibits his artwork in a museum or in an art exhibition, right? So we are able to say immigration, take it with a grain of salt, know that this is common for this field and take it as comparable evidence, which is what they accept.
I think it's important for the case and it needs to go in there. Even if things do not necessarily fit into this, perfect little box that we're trying to put in here through this regulatory criteria, you need to argue that. You need to put it in there because I think it's worth it. I think it's, and obviously if you're at a certain level in your career, you're doing all these things. And that's the reality. You're presenting at conferences. You're being invited to do these interesting things worldwide, maybe even locally. Let's jump to the next category, which is command a high salary. Again, one of those categories that you're like, hey, I make a ton of money compared to other people in my field. And Stephanie, what do we say to that?
We have to show it. Yes, you make a lot of money, but let's show it. And the most important part is the second part of that sentence is you not only command a high salary, but in comparison to others in your field. So in the US, it is pretty simple to be able to document this because we have something that's called the Department of Labor, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, where it really documents what are the average salaries for certain professions. So it's easy to show, hey, listen, Department of Labor says that for an IT professional, this is the common salary, this is the high salary. And if your tax return or your pay statements or your hourly rate on a pay stub says you're earning that, then you can prove it. It might be a little tougher when you're talking about other countries that may not have those standards. So what might be easy is, I know the example of the UK government also keeps these sort of numbers. And they have guides which say these are the common salaries in the UK for this industry. There's the Robert Half salary guide, which is common in Europe. So we have to be able to show why your salary really puts you in that top end. It's high in comparison to other people doing the same things. And that's where it gets a little tough.
Again, so you're a CEO of a company, you make X amount of money a year. you qualify, you're in this higher level. The issue is you need something that USCIS is willing to accept as official. Okay, as official. How do you go ahead and demonstrate that? You're going to demonstrate that because it's kind of an industry standard. So you might have to have the source, and we might sometimes there get a letter from a professional within that industry also indicating that it is an industry standard to look up salaries here. Okay, not necessarily just some general website that we found that goes ahead and has it. No, a professional that's qualified in that particular industry is saying that, yes, this is the standard when we're trying to determine salaries in this particular country. Obviously, we work with the clients there to try to develop different ideas, brainstorming how we can. That's a great category. If you qualify, basically, if you have it, you either have it or you don't. Okay, so that's one of those. Okay, it's kind of like the awards category, right? Stuff. It's like you have the award or you don't have the award. You have the high salary or you don't. So it's a good category in that regard, but sometimes it's difficult to document it. Let's go to our last criteria out of the 10 is the commercial success criteria. Stephanie, talk to us a little bit about commercial success.
Commercial success is tough because that really is one that almost only applies to the performing arts. In fact, it does say performing arts in the law. So really that's going to be one that for those that are performers or in that world of performing arts, you have commercial success based on the box office, based on TV ratings, TV viewership. You have high reviews on your music, high downloads, high streamings. This is a numbers game, and this is a numbers game for performers, really. This is going to be tough, to be honest, for business and entrepreneurs to fit into this category, unless it's potentially a number of apps being downloaded. That could potentially arguably qualify for commercial success. It's a tough sell.
I would say you go other comparable with commercial success.
Exactly.
And you go other comparable. And yes, I created a product that sold 1 million units worldwide. I'm sorry. I believe that's commercially successful product. We get another professional in the industry discussing it. We go ahead and show the hard numbers, the data for it. And I would still argue it regardless if it's outside of the performing arts. So yes, it's about record sales. It's about ticket sales for a concert. It's about ticket sales for a play. The reality is that data is difficult to obtain, generally speaking. And like that data is difficult to obtain, generally speaking. A lot of theater houses, for example, okay, you're a performer, the theater house, they generally don't want to give you that ticket information. That's the reality. If you're able to do it and in the form of a letter and to be able to demonstrate it, I believe you're probably going to be very well positioned to potentially win that category. Steph, that's the criteria. We went through it. We gave what I consider pretty good information. Okay, so now we put together the petition. Okay, we've been working on this beautiful thing for a couple of months now. It's ready to go. We filed a case with USCIS. What are the two options there? Processing times.
So processing times or processing like how we do
abilities, premium versus regular.
Okay, so essentially, if we're submitting this regular processing, we're usually seeing on average about 8 to 10 months to get a response. You do have the option with this specific category to pay a fee called premium processing, where immigration does guarantee a response within 15 days. That response could either be your approval or they could request additional evidence. And then once you submit the evidence, it's going to be another 15 days for a final decision. In those cases, premium processing. Otherwise, you're looking at something of 8 to 10 months. After that, once you get your approval, let's go ahead and talk about stage 2.
Sure. So case has been approved. If you're outside of the United States, we're going to start a process with the National Visa Center. This is a visa office within the United States that will coordinate everything that's going to happen to the pass off to the Department of State for you to have your appointment at the U.S. consulate in your home country abroad. Okay, so that's if you are outside of the U.S., you will have the National Visa Center. At that point, they were going to go ahead and submit forms, civil documents such as birth certificates, marriage certificates, maybe divorce decrees if you've been divorced previously. At that time, you're also going to present maybe a document that you do not have a criminal record. Every country has what's called a reciprocity chart for that individual country. That means the Department of State has set up this kind of table, Stephanie, to go ahead and demonstrate, hey, this is the document we need from Canada. This is the document we need from Italy, okay? Specifically, you then need to go ahead and obtain that document. This is only if you are outside of the United States. The other option is I'm currently in the United States in valid non-immigrant status. Let's just use the example on a work visa currently in the US. You could file what's called a change of status application here if there is a visa number available in the EB1 category. Today, right now, for most countries, it is available. For certain countries, it is not available, such as Mexico, for example, usually has a little bit of what's called retrogression. India has retrogression. China has retrogression. A couple other countries have some retrogression. Sometimes in the EB1 category, okay, there is retrogression. Usually there is not. Unfortunately, about a year and a half ago, 2 years, they created a bit of a backlog retrogression. What is retrogression? That means there is a quota system. There's only X amount of visas available in any given fiscal year from October 1st through September 30th of the following year. And October 1st, they replenish and add in more. Okay, they're going to go ahead and add in more to that individual category. It's generally around 10,000 visas in the EB1 category. Now, if there's too many applications, what happens, Stephanie? There will create a delay. Okay, right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, we're current in the EB1 category, correct?
Yep, we're current. And Gil, one thing I wanted to point out, which was going back to what we said at the beginning, this is the whole reason of getting in line.
Yeah.
The day you submit your stage 1, your I-140, that is the date that governs your place in line. So if there is retrogression, thankfully right now there's not for the majority of countries, but if there is, what governs is your place in line, which is the day you submitted that I-140.
Really important. That becomes your priority date for your entire green card petition. Again, if you're here in the US, you could then file for a change of status to a green card lawful permanent resident application I-45 in the US. You could obtain separate work and travel authorization. You will eventually have an interview at a USCIS office in the US. Obviously, we would prepare you extremely well for that interview, and then you obtain your 10-year green card. If you are outside of the US, you will eventually have an immigrant visa interview at the US consulate abroad. When the visa is issued, typically speaking, it's issued, Stephanie, for 6 months. You could then enter the United States within that 6-month window and activate your green card. The actual green card typically comes in about 4 months in the mail. If you've previously never had a Social Security, they will mail you a Social Security card as well, and you will receive your 10-year green card over here. Okay. Those are kind of the 2 steps, right? Adjustment of status versus consular processing. We have questions, Stephanie. Let's start going through the questions.
Let's go to questions. Actually, just quickly, our media team wanted to remind you guys, if anyone is looking for this information in Spanish, you can find it on our YouTube page, right? So we did an EB1 webinar in Spanish for those that need Spanish. Great. So our first question is going to be from Enrique. I have an approved EB1A petition, so an approved I-140, and was just waiting for the interview in the US consulate. Does the executive order apply to me? What should I expect my interview to take place? Yes, Enrique, the executive order does apply to this category. So essentially what's gonna happen is, I'm sure you've started your filing and your petition with NVC. NVC, send them all the documentation. They will send you an email saying, we have everything, we're ready to go. And they will start planning or setting your appointment starting in January of 2021. Essentially what this means is they will have you ready to go, and the second the presidential proclamation is finished, which is December, the last day of December of this year, they'll schedule your appointment for next year.
You should probably expect spring, maybe up through May next year. That's probably more reasonable there, Enrique. Next one, Steph.
So we need to do all background check. Giuseppe is asking us, it looks like they submitted the petition and all we need to do is the background check. So this might be an individual who submitted their I-140, maybe is at NVC stage, is getting a police clearance letter. That's what I'm going to assume. It's exactly what Gil was saying. There's a reciprocity schedule. It explains exactly how to get the police clearance letter. And you'll go ahead and you do need to submit that for stage 2 for each applicant. Each applicant of the family needs to submit the police clearance letter.
Miguel asks us, good morning. If I studied in another country and if I pass all the certification exams, can I apply for the EB1 or EB2? Potentially, Miguel. Let's know a little bit more about your profession, the licensing. We did what I consider a pretty good EB2 webinar as well. You might want to check that one out, Miguel, and just take a look at to see if you potentially qualify for that one, be in touch with us, info@beltranburrito.com. Me or Stephanie are generally taking a look at those emails. Please let me know, and maybe we could help you. I'll jump right into the next question, Stephanie. Good morning.
Did you read it?
Oh, no. How is it?
It's very, very long, real fun marketing. It's very specific. Essentially, this person has a marketing company.
Okay.
It's an E2 company, meaning a temporary investor, a temporary visa with an investor. This person is interested to see if this company could potentially be a route for an O1 or EB1. A lot of specifics there. I would say give us a call because there's a lot of specifics and I want to go in detail. Is what Gil and I were saying. We're going to be asking you a lot of questions to see which is the best route for you. Real fun marketing, I would say give us a call or to email us info@beltranburrito.
I like what you send me here, Real Fun Marketing. I think it looks really good. I think that definitely there's a seed there for a case. Go ahead and be in touch with us. So now we have Giuseppe asking us, I did the interview for permanent green card in 2018. And the application was submitted in Miami 2016. Basically, you're doing this process and there is an extreme delay. They're telling him previously there's a background check issue. There might be an issue there. I would not just let that be, Giuseppe. You need to do a service request immediately on that case. We need to see what's happening. You need to do multiple service requests. You need to do service requests like every 30 days, every 45 days. You must call USCIS. I say this all the time to clients. This is your case, okay? You need to go ahead and kind of shake the tree a little bit if you have to. And sometimes things get delayed. Files are lost. They're not, maybe your files at the bottom have a huge stack for absolutely no reason. We need to bring this to their attention. They need to go ahead and give you a reason why this is taking so long, more than just background checks. Okay.
Patel asks us, will the EB1 become current in 2020? Patel, what we were saying, the EB1 is currently current for the month of July. This changes month to month. Usually October is when the number is released, the quota number is released. So we always know October generally is going to be current. And for now, I mean, imagine we've made it to July current. It changes month to month. Usually you'll be able to see the visa bulletin for the month at the next month, starting roughly around the 15th of the current month. Yeah. It's not something I can gauge, but if you know you're filing around October, usually you're good. I'm going to jump into the next question. Oh, go ahead. Go.
I'm sorry, just important there. It depends what country it's from. For example, yes. India, Stephanie, does have retrogression. Yes. The retrogression for India right now is roughly 4 years. Just be aware of that. You apply right now, that number will jump around. So even though it's stated potentially, I'm assuming here that it might be from a different country. Yes. Okay. China, the same thing. Okay. There's delays in those categories. It says numbers of years. It might jump 2 years in 1 month. We don't know. Okay. So that's the reality of the visa bulletin. I don't think you should be discouraged in applying for something for a benefit if you qualify. And it's one thing, and just we're consistently saying this, kind of jump in the line and get in there. And because if you don't get in there, you're never going to have that opportunity, because maybe 3 years from now, it's going to be 3 years. And you're like, wow, I really wish I applied for it 3 years from now. And that's been my professional experience representing countries from all places of the world, clients from all places of the world, Stephanie, that they would tell me something like, wow, my brother petitioning for me takes 10 years, Gil. I've had that conversation with a client. They're like, Gil, I wish I listened to you and I applied for that 10 years ago because I already have a green card today. So that's it's one of those where time for immigration purposes might seem like a little bit longer time. It's not necessarily. Okay. It'll flow, it'll move potentially. So the idea there is to get it filed. Okay. Go ahead, Steph. Steph, you're out. Am I in? I think, guys, I'm sorry, the communication's not too good. Stephen, are you back? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and jump into the next question that says, is one local TV interview or one local press coverage enough, or does it have to be multiples? I prefer to have multiples, but again, it depends in the particular job category that we're talking about. Okay. Are you back, Stephanie? I can't hear you. Sorry. I'm going to keep going. Okay. Good morning. My wife is a makeup artist. She works independently and has participated in fashion shows, has a university degree and other preparatory degrees in his area. Can this person be eligible for some kind of visa? Luis, yes, potentially, maybe more of an O1, I would say, but potentially it is. Go ahead and be in touch with us. Let's go to Albert. Albert says, I have a PhD degree. Will it help my green card application? I would say definitely, Albert. It helps. You might have an EB2 more interesting than an EB1. Keep that in mind. Monica asked us, can I file an EB1 extraordinary ability or EB1 outstanding professor and researcher and EB2 national interest waiver at the same time to increase my approval chances? Monica, I love it. If you could do that, I have a ton of clients that have done that very successfully, actually. Funny thing enough, I've had clients do that and they win both cases. Okay, so that's always a good problem to have. I always say, more fishing lines in the pond, you'll have a more opportunity to catch a fish, Monica. So I like it. That's a good one. Steph, you back?
I am, but my chat got deleted, so I need you to read me the question.
Don't worry, I got it. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna pound through it if you don't mind.
I see.
Yeah, I'm gonna read you a question. EB2 criteria are different than the ones that are being stated, right? That's her question, Maria.
Essentially, yeah. So the EB2 and EB1 do have different criteria. The EB2 is national interest waiver. We do have another webinar on that if you want to go ahead and find it on YouTube. It's a lot of the categories overlap. For instance, the membership category overlaps. Things like, do you have 10 years of experience, which could kind of overlap with critical role. There are things that overlap, but they are completely different. EB2 is usually going to be the best categories. There are someone who has a degree and an advanced degree, someone who has at least 10 years experience, someone who has membership. Those are my favorite categories for the EB2. They slightly differ, and they might be for someone who's a little more, has this educational and this strong work background, might be a better option for you.
Maria, we invite you to take a look at our other video about this, but always think EB1, extraordinary, EB2, exceptional, a little bit less criteria. That's a good gauge. Fatima asked us, I have a question, please. I'm a holder of a J1 visa without the 2-year home residency requirement, so I don't have to return to my country. That's fantastic, Fatima. I'm wondering if I can apply for the EB2 visa. Is it possible to go from a J1 to an EB2? Yes, potentially. If you do not have that requirement, yes, it is possible. Be in touch with us. We'd love to talk to you about the EB2. Umberto asks us, Stephanie, a question more about family cases. He's asking, hey, I have 4 family members and I need to make at least $34,000 a year to petition for my family members. Umberto, take a look at the USCIS website. It's called the I-864P. You're looking at the poverty guidelines and it'll tell you there the exact amount of money. I invite you to take a look at that. Stephanie, this question is for you. I-140 is about 8 to 10 months. What about the I-45? That's a great question. Talk to us about timing. So I filed now the I-45. What does that time frame look like?
I-45, so essentially you file, right? About 30 days later, you're going to get a fingerprint appointment. You're going to go ahead and be invited to take your fingerprints at the USCIS offices. By the way, because of COVID, they have reopened and they are doing appointments right now. About 3 months after that, you're going to get your employment authorization, travel permit. Then I would say, 8 months after that, you're going to get your actual appointment notice to actually go into the USCIS office to talk about your extraordinary ability petition. That is, if we're doing the math, about 11 months after the initial date that you filed your I-485.
And take into consideration something now. They are approving green cards without the interview because of COVID. Okay. Yep. And they're not saying it, it's just happening. EB1s, we're getting green cards, like they're just coming. Okay. And that is without an interview. It's something to keep in mind. That may happen to you. Also, it may happen to you is you might have an interview. Maybe COVID's over. This is next year, end of next year, and they'll go back to having interviews. They might not. This is something that happened in 2017. Previously, EB1 category never had an interview. It's an adjustment of status within the United States. Then in 2017, they started saying that every green card petition needed to have an interview. I would imagine that has more to do with COVID. Obviously, who knows if they're going to go back to it or not. It's just, food for thought. Stephanie, I have my EB2 approved by USCIS. Do I still get the chance to be denied at the U.S. Embassy for the consular interview? So she had, this individual has an approval. Can they, listen, they may deny your visa at the, if you don't qualify, or if there's something that makes you inadmissible. Do you have a criminal background? Do you have you misrepresented yourself in a visa application in the past? Have you committed fraud? Is there an open criminal investigation against you in your home country, in the United States? These are all things that may lead to a denial. It's very important, if you have that concern, to please discuss it with an immigration attorney, immigration counsel on it, just to see why, what's going on there. Typically speaking, if everything is done properly and there's no misrepresentation of anything, no, you should obtain it. Okay. Stephanie, let's talk about, Evgeny is asking us, I've been in the US 6 months. It's a great question. I've been in the United States 6 months on an O1 visa. I want to file my EB1. Do I have to show proof of my work here in the US? He's only been here 6 months. Would we focus more, Stephanie, on the stuff he's done previous or with the O1 versus necessarily the work he's been doing here in the US?
So the EB1 is really a cumulative view of your entire career. So I'm sure everything you use for your O1 petition is going to be phenomenal to include also in your EB1 petition. They're not just looking at the last 6 months. They're looking at, have you been extraordinary for a long period of time throughout your career? And that's what's the important part. When we're talking about the last 6 months, maybe they just want to see that you continue to be active in your field. That's really, I think, the focus. Hey, is this person still doing what they say they do? That's the important part of keeping the petition up to date. But as far as, are they looking specifically at that? No, this is a cumulative view of your entire career. And we're going to submit a lot of the things you did submit for the O1 again with the EB1. Yep,
that's it. So the reality is that, look, this happens to a lot of people. They get an O1, they come here to the US, and the work, it might be a little bit not at the extraordinary ability level that they were doing in their home country or outside the United States. 6 months is so little time. I don't have a problem with that. I personally don't like to have huge gaps. So if you have a huge gap of like 5 years that things have not been fantastic, then the reality is that you might have an issue. In such a short time, I think it's fine. Let's talk about really interesting, I don't know, this might be a toss-up to me. This is what you call a toss-up, Stephanie, the toss-up question. Are they changing the law for EB1? Well, thank you for asking. So no, I do not believe that they're changing the law for the EB1, but our president did say this week that they are going to expand a merit-based system, okay, for visas and for green cards for foreign nationals and for individuals. For me, merit-based has a lot to do with EB1 type of things. So you might be one of these people that kind of qualify for an EB1. Be on the lookout for that, because the reality is there might be a great opportunity there. Let's see what he comes out with. I would expect that probably in the next month or so that they're going to come out with something. And obviously, we're going to be informing you guys of this, via Instagram, via YouTube, stuff like that. Stephanie, a question for you. I have an H-1B, which is going to end in October. My employer doesn't want to sponsor me for a green card, labor certification type of green card. Can I make an EB1 self-petition? Stephanie.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That's a great option for you. The important thing I think you need to know is if your H-1B is expiring in October, you need to move quickly, because essentially you have potentially two options. You can either file your EB1 through the consulate. Basically, you leave in October, you continue this process through the consulate, or what you can do is maybe file concurrently. You file both your stage 1 and your stage 2 at the exact same time, which will permit you to remain in the US during this process. You can absolutely do it. Just because your petitioner is not doing a labor certification for you, that doesn't mean that you yourself can't seek out the green card using this self-petition option.
Yeah, just be mindful of the dates.
Exactly.
I would probably really start organizing that EB1. There's some special things there for EB1 that I think could help you out tremendously, including a law that will allow you, because you're applying for certain EB categories, in this category, the EB1, that even if you're past the date, you might still be able to obtain a green card. I would recommend you have a conversation with us so we could kind of help you through that process. We have a great question from Joao from Brazil. He says, how difficult is it going from an L1A to EB1? Joao, you could go from any non-immigrant visa category to an EB1 if you qualify. It's kind of in line with what you were saying there, Stephanie. If you're L1A, particularly, you are generally speaking an executive, you're a manager, you're supervising a group of people, you're supervising a project, for example, boom, I got lead. Okay, is this person an executive here that they're being invited for conferences? Are they speaking? Are they being quoted in press? Are they being interviewed? I got press. We could quickly develop a case there potentially for you from L1A. And I do think that's fine to jump. You do not always have to go from L1A to multinational manager I-140 executive being sponsored via the company. This happens a lot of times, Stephanie, where the company, like the previous individual with the H-1B, the company doesn't want to sponsor you for a green card. And this is a real thing. Why? Because many times companies sponsor you for a green card. Then after you have a green card, you're like, see ya, company. And companies know that, okay? And that's the reality of this. So it's an unbelievable thing, though, that these individuals are potentially able to self-petition, okay? Either in the EB1, and I'll also tell you the EB2 category. Let's not discard the EB2 NIW category. Fantastic category for professionals. So I suggest have a consultation with us, try to develop that for you. Steph, we have here a question for you. Can I use my daughter's talent to get an O1 visa? She's 9 years old.
It's not that silly. So Mari, basically, what's going to happen is your O1 visa holder is actually going to be your daughter. Your daughter is the one who has the exceptional talent. Your daughter can apply for an O1 visa. The O1 visa requires, remember, a sponsor, a job offer, and showing of extraordinary ability. But the option for you as her mother, probably the person who answers the phone calls and handles her career a little bit, is going to be an O2 visa. This is known as essential support personnel. And essentially, you are so important to her career that your daughter can't come and work on her own. She needs you to join her. Usually in those scenarios, and believe me, it's actually more common than you think, the parent who really manages the daughter's career is going to get that O2 visa, and those visas go together. The same amount of time for the O1 is the same amount of time for the O2 visa.
That's it. I mean, wow. How many momagers, dadagers, I guess, we've done O2s for, because the reality is they need their legal guardian here. We'll get you the O2 for them. You know, it's like, that's unbelievably reasonable. So yes, don't be too concerned with age. Okay. There is no age requirement. There's a talent requirement. Okay. So that's really where we're at on that one. We're going to close with this question, Evgeny. Does rejecting an EB1 affect negatively on my current status O1? It does not, number one. Even if you have an EB1 denial, Evgeny, you could still renew that O1 as many times as you wish in the future. That generally should not be an impediment to renew an O1. I wanted to say, Stephanie, I think things went well. We had a little technical difficulties. We apologize. We're trying to improve the internet situation here in the office, and we're doing a little bit of a transition here to different systems. So hopefully we're going to get better internet. We're going to keep doing these webinars, these online seminars, and we thank you for participating. We also ask you to kindly let us know if there's some topic that you're interested in that we're not discussing. I would love to talk about it, and I would love to offer a webinar for that. Please go ahead and put it in the comments below if you may. That'd be wonderful. Always feel free to be in touch with us, info@beltranbrito.com. Stephanie, thank you so much for your work today.
Thank you so much, Gil. It was a pleasure speaking to everyone. And find us on Instagram @BeltranBrito LLP. We're happy to interact with you guys, and we look forward to the next one.
Thank you. Take care.